Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows just don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it a second chance might just sway your mind.
Here we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if a show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this week will be Sandman.
Is it The Sandman?
I think so. I think it's The Sandman.
It is The Sandman.
I know the graphic novels and comics are.
The show is too. I've seen it
Is
on
it? Okay, it's just like every time I've seen it, the is obviously like assumedly so tiny I haven't noticed it.
I've seen it on Twitter so much. There's this sand artist that did...
Oh, that's dope though.
Have you seen the Sandman?
I have not, but it sounds dope.
I'll show you it later.
So
Anyways,
technically, it's Netflix's
The Sandman.
The Sandman, but I don't even call it DC's or Vertigo's The Sandman. It's Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. So
it's 2022 Netflix's adaptation of the Neil Gaiman graphic novel The Sandman.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about it in the cockpit
very briefly,
but The Sandman is one of Justice's favorite. It is his favorite graphic novel series.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to argue with me, but I know I'm right.
No, the only thing that maybe comes close,
Beast Boy stuff?
no, because he doesn't really have a lot of independent runs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Teen Titans, and Teen Titans is good sometimes, but also really bad other times. Ugh. Now, the only thing that I guess would probably come close would be like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
What about Teen Titans could be bad?
Or maybe some of the Alan Moore Swamp Thing runs.
Could it be the time that Slade molested a teenager? Or that time that Robin was raped? Or the other time Robin was raped?
No, the other time it was Nightwing who was raped.
Oh, Teen Titans.
Still Richard, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teen Titans gets weird, and then there's the whole fucking Psybeast thing.
What is Psybeast?
So when they did the recent stuff, Future State, when they did Future State stuff, they had a Teen Titans run. And one of the big selling points was that Red X was now in the comics.
Okay, I remember this, yeah.
And
I didn't read this.
They were going to tell you who Red X was, we were going to find out. But it was all set in the future. The Teen Titans did the thing that happens occasionally, where they're no longer the Teen Titans, they're the Titans, and then they're training new teenagers, new Titans, right? Some shit goes down, and Cyborg and Beast Boy end up in the same body, and they are Psybeast.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it does.
Did they use Potara earrings or fusion dance?
Neither. Those can be undone.
Well, the Potara earrings can only be undone by, like, a god, or if you die or something.
Yeah. But I mean, that's easy enough when you work closely with the Justice League, and there are gods on their roster.
Fair enough. We're so far off base. So, for this flight, we watched The Sandman. Netflix 2022, Neil Gaiman. Go watch it. It needs streaming hours to get renewed for a season 2.
Yeah. So I guess why not just go ahead and start with this? So, The Sandman, Episode 1, Sleep of the Just.
So, Sleep of the Just opens with a monologue from our main character, whose name is Morpheus.
Yes.
Or
Dream.
Dream.
More commonly known as Dream, yes.
Or Laura Dream. Or The Dreaming.
Or Oniros.
But it's a monologue about how people think of the waking world as the real world, when dreams are just as real as the waking world is.
If not arguably more.
And have influence over every aspect of everybody's life, regardless of if humans view them as real or not. And from there, we get a man in a carriage who's asleep.
Yes, and he is pulling up to Fawny Rig, a mansion somewhere in the countryside of assumedly somewhere in England, assumedly someplace like London.
It's outside of London, yeah.
It is outside of London, yes, but I don't think it directly tells us that.
Not
and it's
until episode 2.
Yeah. And it is 1916.
Yes. And while we're getting pulled up to that, we use the old sleeping man as our transitional point.
Yes.
Into the world of dreams, where Dream himself narrates about how dreams are the way for humans to, like, release frustration or experience adventure and joy when they don't have those aspects in their life. And it's this old man standing on top of a bridge, and there's dragons and fantastical creatures, waterfalls that don't make sense, and all of this stuff all around. And honestly, it's very well done. Like, this show is shot in such a manner that parts of it feel dreamlike.
Yes, which is...
in a way that can't be put into words.
It's fabulous. And the score, even starting here, and arguably the sound design throughout both these episodes, I won't touch on so much just because it's very hard to describe a very good score, in my opinion. But the scoring in the ADR for both of these episodes is fantastic.
A great score, like a great score, is one that is subtle enough not to be description worthy, but powerful enough to influence every way you view every scene.
Yes.
And that's what this score is.
There's one specific moment involving the score that I will talk about. It actually occurs in episode 1, and I will talk about it because it works beautifully.
Okay, so this man is
He is Dr. John Hathaway.
Yes.
As we shortly learn, because when we go to him, he's woken up and he goes to enter the mansion and he knocks on the door and is met by a young child.
Whose name is Alex.
Yes. And he asks who the doctor is, and the doctor introduces himself and says he's here for the Magus.
And that he himself he works at the Royal Museum of London as like an artifact coordinator or something. I don't remember the exact.
Something along those lines here.
Yeah. He's in charge of artifacts.
Mm-hmm. So Alex leads Dr. Hathaway through this mansion. Your choice of words, really.
It's definitely
it's a mansion, but I like the word manor more.
It's definitely a mansion, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a name, Justice. It has to be a mansion.
True. And
what was the name of the
Fonny Rig?
Fonny Rig, that's what it is.
So as he's leading him through to where the Magus will meet him, they are walking past a door, and we see in, and there's a bunch of people in like these dark midnight blue robes, and they're just chanting "Here in the darkness."
Here in the darkness. Here in the darkness.
Until a
Here in the darkness.
butler walks up
Here
to the door.
In the darkness.
Looks at Alex and says, "The Magus will meet him in the study," and then closes the door in their face.
Yes. And it's also here we get the Magus's name earlier on, actually.
Yes.
When the doctor asks for
Roderick Burgess.
Roderick Burgess, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, and Alex corrects him and says he prefers to be called the Magus.
Which means sorcerer.
Yes.
Magus means sorcerer.
Alex feels the need to tell us that.
So, in the study, the Magus greets the doctor and inquires about a tome that he had been interested in earlier, because at the time when he first showed interest, the doctor was like, I can't give that to you, it's part of the museum's collection.
Yes.
But now the doctor is here to give him this tome because the Magus claims that with the tome he can resurrect the dead.
Yes.
Specifically his son who died in the Gallipoli conflict.
And
the Gallifrey conflict.
And Hathaway's son, who died just off of Jutland last week.
On his destroyer. They were both serving in the military. Because this is 1916. We failed to mention that.
Yes. No, I mentioned it briefly.
Oh, this is World War I. I think World War I ended in 1917.
I think so. But in this interaction, they basically bond over their grief. Though we do learn here that the Magus has only really ever, in society, talked about his son, the one who has just recently died.
Randall.
And he hasn't mentioned Alex, to the point that Hathaway, when he's introduced to Burgess, asks him about Alex, basically. He's like, I thought you only had one son. And Burgess goes on about how everything he owns should have been Randall's, and that Randall's was his greatest joy and gift. And basically, fuck Alex, I don't need that kid. Randall was the dopest.
Yeah, he literally, like, in front of Alex goes, Randall was the greatest joy in my life.
Mm-hmm. And then he sends Alex on his way after Alex serves them tea. His son is just a member of his white staff, basically.
Essentially, yeah. So after he gives him the tome, which apparently has spells and magics going back to the beginning of written time.
Yes, according to Burgess.
They take the tome down to the basement where the cult of people who hear in the darknessing.
Mm-hmm.
They start a ritual in order to summon the Angel of Death herself so that they may use her power to resurrect their sons.
Yeah. So as they start chanting that and performing their ritual around a binding circle that they have, we cut over to a place in Germany in 1916.
Yes.
We see a man in a tan coat, blonde hair, bent over, and we see him pull out a knife and wipe it free of blood.
Yes. Prior to this, though, we did get a scene of Laura Dream, Morpheus, essentially getting a suit up scene. He's putting on his mask.
We get that before we even enter the Fonny Rig.
Fair enough.
Because that is where we leave Dream for the Fonny Rig stuff and then come back here.
That's fair enough. So yeah, we get Dream suiting up. He's putting on his mask. He's getting his bag of sand.
And he's taking his raven with him, and they're going to the mortal realm to handle a nightmare.
Because sometimes nightmares or dreams escape into the real world, and while dreams aren't really stable in the real world and will eventually dissipate, nightmares sometimes manage to thrive.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing here when we cut to Germany. This man with the glasses and the bloody knife is a nightmare. He's called the Corinthian.
Yes, and he's trying to talk Morpheus into allowing him to stay because nightmares can thrive here. And after all, nightmares have a place with humans for a reason. And after all, there's nothing stopping them from ruling this place because they're so much more powerful.
And Dream goes, no, there is something stopping you. It's me. And like he has the most badass like appearance here where he solidifies out of like darkness.
Not even really solidifies. He stays like an amorphous shadow outline.
Yes, that's fair. And he goes to use his ruby, his magic gemstone to dissipate the Corinthian. But then suddenly
his form kind of glitches and disappears in a small swirl of sand.
Yep.
And then we're back in the Undercroft, actually, as it's called.
The Undercroft of Fania Rig.
They never mention that in these two episodes, but that's just the name of it, comics. And
in the summoning circle that the Magus was performing his ritual next to,
Dream slams down into it unconscious.
And so the Magus has his youngest son, Alex, come over and, because he's smaller and more nimble, reach into the circle, pull the cloak from Dream, get the ruby in the bag, and then he himself manages to lean down and pull the mask off of Dream.
Well, he pulls the robe off, gets attacked by Jessamy the Raven.
Yes, that's right.
And then he pulls the helm off after the Raven flies out of the Undercroft.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But the shot where Dream slams into the floor, they pull up to view it from above, and it's just a very nice cinematographic shot. It's really well balanced. He looks
like a pool of ink, honestly.
A pool of ink in a golden circle, and it looks amazing.
The cinematography in this show is excellent. Honestly, thinking back, shows we've reviewed,
I think this is the show with the best cinematography.
Well, I mean, there was The Witcher. That show had really good cinematography. Really good use of camera work in that show.
Look.
No, I actually think Sandman might be not only like the best use of camera work, but just is it too early to say that this is the best show we've reviewed?
I'm gonna go with no. I don't think it's way too early to say that. I think it's appropriately the right time to say it.
We're 15 minutes into the episode. This is the best show we've ever watched for the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through all the episodes we've just to make sure.
The Witcher had some decent cinematography. The main problem with The Witcher is directorial choices with scenes.
Editing choices.
And some of the cinematography was bad. That fucking horrible Dutch angle that they had.
Wayne was very good.
Wayne had great cinematography, actually. And great directorial choices, where they chose to cut things and how they chose to
ghost stories. But that's anime. That's different from
anime still has a cinematographic lens to it.
Money Heist.
Good, but not better cinematographically. I think a large boon, arguably, to the cinematographic lens for Sandman is that having frames in a comic, especially a comic so well known for its art, does give you a very good basis on how you should build your frame on camera as well.
So
obviously you have to change it and adjust it depending on what you're actually doing in the scene because you have full movement, right? But I think it gives you a very good skeleton almost of how you want to frame your shots.
Thinking WandaVision might be...
WandaVision, I'm going to say this is the second best cinematography we've had, yeah?
Yeah, WandaVision. And then this might be the best show we've reviewed. It's just the single best show.
I would say so. It's
up there with WandaVision and Money Heist.
Yes.
Those would be my other two calls for best shows we've seen for this podcast. But anyways, that's a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So they take his stuff, basically, and leave him naked on the floor. And then we have some exposition from Dream. There's some narration from Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him explaining how this amateur magician not only imprisoned him, but doesn't also realize how much he's messed up, not only the dreaming, but the waking world as well.
Yeah, but we don't get a lot of this here yet because the Corinthian first comes to visit.
Well, no, Dream explains this and then we get the Corinthian.
Mm.
Yeah. And Dream explains that by trapping him, now a sleeping sickness has occurred, which is actually a fun thing that has basis in history.
So yeah, because...
Encephalitis lethargia?
In the early 20th century, I don't know the exact years, but it was tail end of World War I. The Roaring 20s were actually, it was an ongoing thing during the Roaring 20s. There was a wave of sickness across the world where people would just fall asleep and stay asleep.
Yes. Now, obviously, in this, it's much more...
magical.
Yeah, it's much more magical because not only do some people fall asleep, he doesn't mention it here, but I don't feel like we need to go into it later when he mentions it again.
Mm-hmm.
So some people fall asleep and won't wake up.
Other people cannot get to sleep at all.
And some people fall asleep and are in a perpetual sleepwalking stasis.
Yeah.
And according to Dream, this is all because he is no longer in the dreaming. The dreaming is not what it once was because he is trapped here in the waking world.
Essentially, the forces of Dream have gone wild. There's nobody controlling them or making sure they function correctly. But it should be noted, the real-life event that this is referencing is also the basis for famed slasher film character Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
His
yeah,
entire
it's the basis
basis
of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, his entire basis is the sleeping sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Which, God, you know how cool it is? Like, it's not cool. It's terrible for all the people that died from it. But like, it's wild, like, in history, how we have these, like, sicknesses that have never occurred since. And, like, as far as we know, documented wise, never occurred before, but just globally happen and then stop. There's the sleeping sickness, there's the dancing plagues, like, all of that shit is...
Oh, yeah, it's fucking crazy. Neat, but crazy.
But yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
You're fine.
I'm terrible about that.
So here, though, is when the Corinthian shows up to talk to Mr. Burgess.
Yeah, to talk to the Magus. Corinthian basically shows up and he appears in the manor behind the Magus while he's doing something else.
Well, we see him pull up in a car, walk in.
Yeah.
And the Magus is talking to him, and the Corinthian mentions the being trapped in the basement.
I know what you have. I know what you have in your basement.
And the Magus assumes he wants to be blackmailed. And then, as he's talking to the Corinthian, he says something vaguely insulting to the Corinthian. I don't remember exactly what. And the Corinthian is suddenly on the other side of the room.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what happens. He teleports across the room.
And the Corinthian explains that you have one of the endless trapped, and Burgess is like, a god. He's like, much older than gods. More powerful, too.
Yeah, because the Magus is like, the endless. What are they? And Corinthian goes, death has a family. Desire.
You didn't think death was the only one, did you?
Destiny, desire.
And then before he can finish naming them all, Burgess goes, well, which one do I have? And the Corinthian says, dream.
What use is a god of dreams? And Corinthian replies, not a god. Older, more powerful.
And then the Corinthian gives him tips on how to contain dream.
Put him in a glass ball. Make sure nobody breaks the summoning circle. And most importantly, nobody can sleep in his presence. Everybody has to do meth.
Yeah, he tells him about forced march tablets, which were basically meth. Not exactly, but basically meth.
I mean, if we're talking about German forced march tablets, they were meth. Germany invented meth during World War II. World War One.
Yeah.
I don't remember which. Germany invented what we call meth.
Well, I mean, it's 1916, so it would be World War One.
Yeah. Although I guess it could have been cocaine at this point.
Yeah, I think it was cocaine, because I think meth was invented
during World War II.
Yeah. Anyways, though, from there we see like a bit of a montage of them kind of building it. And then we cut to 1926 after the Corinthian leaves.
Because we use Dream's monologue to cut forward. He says something about how the Magus Burgess would come to him asking for things that he could grant no mortal: immortality, power, wealth.
Yeah, and now he would repeatedly do it. We do see the Corinthian leave, and he has this fun interaction with Burgess. Well, I would say fun. I think Burgess would call fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Because Burgess asks us if we'll see him again, and the Corinthian just looks back at him, kind of chuckles a bit and goes, you better hope not.
Yeah, and this is also where the Magus finds out about Jessamy the Raven and the importance of it, because it's at this point, at the end of their conversation, where Corinthian goes, we're being watched, and they're outside in the driveway as Corinthian is prepared to get in his car and leave, and the Magus goes, there's nobody out here, and so Corinthian picks up a rock and throws it, hits a tree, but scares a raven out of it, and Corinthian goes, Jessamy, she's gonna be your problem, you have to deal with her.
And he's like, what? A raven? He's like, it's one of his.
Yeah.
And then the Magus asks Dream to bring back his son, if he can do that, because, well, he makes dreams come true, and also he's more powerful than a god.
Yes.
And then we get Dream's exposition of like, blah, 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 constantly asking me for stuff, riches, money, power, his son, whatever.
But he doesn't understand the damage he's doing to the world. While he may be becoming wealthy, and his cult might become powerful, the damage he's doing to the world, the sleeping sickness.
Continues.
And this is where we flash into like different hospital rooms and like people stuck in sleepwalkers.
Yes.
But this is all done through a newspaper that we then flash out of.
So there is one vaguely important thing here. Doesn't seem super important if you don't know the comics.
That's true.
Because when we first hear about it, we see a family walk into a room, and their daughter, who they call Unity, is asleep and won't wake up. We also see a dollhouse. Unity Kincaid is a character who become important later in the story.
Yes.
And we see her again in the update. She's in the background. She's not the focus, but she's there.
So we go from that flash to all the people still experiencing the sleeping sicknesses, and we go from that through the newspaper,
which Alex Burgess is reading, and he is now
being reprimanded by the head of staff.
Well, I was going to say he's now a young adult.
Yes, and he's being reprimanded by the head of staff at this party that the Magus is throwing.
Because instead of doing, apparently, the job he has, which is seemingly to be a coat check and doorman, he is reading a newspaper.
Yeah, and the head of staff is like, hey, don't let your father see you reading, but, like, I don't care, essentially. And so Alex takes the coats that he was given, throws them aside somewhere, which is hilarious.
Yes, he just throws them on the chair, and then he walks outside. And the front lawn is fucking filled with people trying to get inside.
And it looks like his job is to be like, hey, all you fuckers can't come inside.
No more
room. Except he's much more passive about it. He's like, sir. And then he's like, ma'am, there's no more room inside. We can't have any more. Like, he's super passive and like...
Yes, which makes sense with the life he
Oh, no,
has.
yeah. But, like, this causes one of the guys who he's telling we can't have any more people in tonight to be like, oh, the Magus says, who are you to speak for the Magus?
To which a young woman walks up and he's like...
So the young woman comes up and she says, he's the Magus' son.
And I think she calls him a fucking git.
Yeah.
And it's like, I bet he could turn you into, like, I think she says, like, a frog or a lizard or something like that. A reptile, basically. And the guy looks scared and affronted, and he's like, can we come back tomorrow? He asks her. And so she looks at Alex and is like, can they?
And Alex goes, only if they bring cash.
Yeah.
Her specific threat is that he could probably make you infertile.
Oh, yeah. And your, like, anchors your descendants and whatnot.
Yeah. So he thanks her, and she's like, I don't know why you're thanking me. I bet you can do magic.
And he's like, not really. And she's like, well, you have more power than you think. You can get me in to see the Magus. And he does.
Yeah, which is hilarious. He's like, nobody could come in. And she's like, yeah, nobody could come in. Can I come in?
Yeah. And we know that she sticks around because the next morning we see Alex is tasked with cleaning up, and we see Ethel. We learn her name at the very end of their interaction. We don't see her right away, actually. Alex is cleaning up, and we see two of the guards who were downstairs complaining because the guys who were meant to replace them have not shown up.
And Alex is just like, I can go watch the entity if you want to.
Yeah, and the guys, like, share a brief look of, like, man, we probably shouldn't, but fuck it. And, like, see you tomorrow, Alex.
Because they've been waiting for a half hour for the guys who are supposed to take their shift.
And this job is creepy as fuck, and also, like, fuck that, man. No one wants to work longer than they have to.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, they're also having to dose on, like...
fucking meth?
Or cocaine or something, yeah.
Yeah, not a good time. So Alex heads down, and he starts talking to Dream in the bubble.
Yeah.
And Dream hasn't responded to anyone. He's just stone faces everyone. But Alex is just like, could you do what my father wants? Could you bring Randall back? I know he'd let you go. Like, if you could just give him something, anything, he would let you go. Or at least I know I would.
And obviously his father catches him here.
Yeah.
But the only part his father hears is when Alex is like, I'd let you go.
Then Burgess says, would you now? And we cut to him in the study, throwing Alex roughly onto the floor, and goes to start beating him with a cane when Ethel walks in, and then he's still about to hit Alex anyways, but there's a pecking on the window, and it is Jessamy.
To which the Magus is like, that stupid bird. And
I've been trying to kill it for a fucking decade now. And Ethel's just like, surely you haven't. It has to be a different bird. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And then
I'm the Magus. Don't doubt me.
And then Alex is like, it can't be the same bird. To which Magus is like, he told you to say that, didn't he?
He's like, no, he didn't say anything. And then the Magus is like, prove it. Kill the bird, and shoves a gun into his hand and a satchel of ammo.
Yep. And so I don't know how much time passes from here to the next, but
yeah,
Alex is now walking around the grounds with a I think it's a shotgun.
I would assume it's a rifle, given later when he uses it at the distance.
That's fair.
And the fact that there's not a spread on it.
I mean,
and it's a longer bored barrel.
You can have a shotgun without spread. That's
yeah.
That's what slug is for.
Like, definitely could be. Honestly, you should be using birdshot, but he doesn't seem to later.
And also, birdshot wouldn't make a bird blow up.
Yeah. But anyways, he's walking the ground, and he meets, assumedly, a gardener of some sort, Paul.
Yes. And it's not obvious here yet, but Paul and Alex like each other.
Yeah, honestly, I would say, like, if you definitely don't know anything about it beforehand, it's kind of possible to read that maybe Alex likes Ethel, which is weird, because she definitely fucks his father.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, we very much learned that, because...
we'll get there. Because
yeah, it's very soon after this.
Paul and Alex meet, they have a meet cute.
Mm-hmm.
Then...
we exit out of the mansion, and we see that the door's open, and then we see Jessamy flying around.
And Jessamy flies into the mansion house, basically spies on the Magus while he lights an incense or something. I'm not quite sure what he does here.
I think he lights a pipe.
Okay. And then Jessamy the Raven steals a Strike Anywhere match, a white phosphorus tip match, strikes it on a banister rail, and then
While flying down to the Undercroft.
she's
Flying towards the Undercroft, sorry.
sets the hall or living area on fire.
It looks like a chair in the study that had some papers on it.
Yep. And then, using that as a distraction, flies down to the Undercroft.
Yeah.
Where she
The
starts
guards
pecking
run off trying to set out the fire.
where she starts pecking on the glass, trying to get it to open up.
And this entire scene is the one I wanted to talk about because it is really, really well done. From the moment we get out the door and we start seeing Jessamy, we get this kind of building music, like almost heroic or triumphant.
Mm-hmm.
And when Jessamy lands inside the house, like for the first time since leaving 10 years ago, assumedly, Jessamy lands on a banister, and we see Dream look up in his cage, basically, his glass sphere, technically.
Yeah.
And we're getting a build, and it's building this entire time where we see Jessamy flying through and outwitting these humans. When it gets down there, it's building to this big crescendo. Dream has stood up. He has like a slight smile on his face as Jessamy's pecking at it, and then Jessamy just bursts.
Blows up.
Because Alex is downstairs and has just shot Jessamy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can Dream see through the eyes of his ravens? Because it feels like it in this scene.
I don't particularly remember. I know that the ravens are messengers between the dreaming and the waking world. They can move between. But I don't think he can see through it.
Yeah, this sequence of events in particular.
I believe he can feel it because it is part of the dreaming, which would be why he could sense it was above him.
That's fair. Okay, that makes sense then. But yeah, Alex, to prove his loyalty to his father, blows the bird up with a shotgun.
Yeah, and his father comes downstairs, and his father isn't really happy about the bird. He's pissed that Alex shot a gun near the glass sphere.
Yeah, he's not like, oh, thanks for getting that bird that I've spent over a decade trying to shoot.
Yeah.
He's like, you're a fucking moron. What if you had hit the glass?
So he rips the gun out of his hands and commands Alex to clean up the bird.
Yep.
All the while, Dream is, like, staring daggers into Alex as he does this.
Yeah, because he just killed a person.
Yeah. So from here, we have Alex and Paul talking again outside. Some time has passed, we don't really know how much. And we hear, like, glass shatter in the mansion.
Yep.
And Alex looks a bit confused and then tears off towards the mansion.
Yep. So Alex then runs into Ethel.
Well, he's running towards the study, and he hears his father angrily storming, so he just fucking hides.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then he goes into the study, where he finds Ethel crying in front of a mirror.
Yes.
Maybe it's not the study. It's a room.
Yeah, it's a room. It's not the study.
Yeah, because he goes to like what looks like a trophy room area.
But Ethel's crying, and we find out that she's pregnant with the Magus' son.
Yeah, and Alex is like happy for her. He's like, "That's wonderful. That's great." And she tells him the Magus wants her to get rid of it. In fact, he's calling the doctor right now.
And so instead, she steals a whole bunch of stuff and leaves.
Yeah, she steals the helm, the ruby, the sand, and $200,000 in cash.
In 1926 money.
Yeah.
Or probably like 1927, 1928 money.
It's hard to know. 1926 was the last definite year.
Yeah.
And she disappears into the night.
Yes.
So the Magus is pissed when he finds out, and he goes to Dream to try to get Dream to do his dirty work for him. He tries to convince and manipulate Dream into going after Ethel because he wants her dealt with, and she stole Dream's items.
Yeah. The funny part here is he's phrasing it as like, oh, she stole these things from you. But technically, the Magus stole those things from him.
Yeah.
And she just stole them from the Magus. So, like...
Mm-hmm. So, in this interaction, Roderick tells Dream he'll free him to go get his items, as long as he promises not to hurt him and ensure they are well, and give him wealth and immortality and basically everything he's wanted. And Alex comes down there with him, and they're exchanging some words. Alex is basically, stop, it's not going to do anything, just let him go, basically. It's dumb. And Roderick tells him that he's a disappointment, and that if Randall was here, things would be different.
And this is where Alex explodes. He's like, well, Randall's not here. And, like, Roderick goes to...
That's not what he says, actually.
Oh.
He says if Randall was here, he would hate you just as much as I do.
Yeah, that's right. And Roderick goes to hit Alex.
With the cane again.
Alex kind of catches the cane and shoves back at Roderick. Roderick, being an old man, stumbles back and cracks his head on the ground.
Cracks his head on Dream's glass.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then falls to the ground.
Yes. And this is where he dies. Because he's an old man and just had his head cracked open. Alex killed his dad. Patricide. But to be fair, his dad's a piece of shit. Deserved it.
Mm-hmm. So then in this moment, Alex seems to almost free Dream.
Yeah, he goes to free him, but...
One of the security guards is like, stop or whatever.
What would your dad think?
And Alex steps back and stops.
Yep. So Alex is then talking to Paul, and he's like, my dad is dead. And we fast forward, essentially.
Well, no. Immediately after that, we see Ethel with her son.
Yeah.
So she gives birth to her son, John, who she calls Johnny here, and just tells him that she will make all of his promises and dreams come true because there's no entity to come and sprinkle sand in your eyes and make all your dreams come true like her parents told her. At least not anymore.
Yeah, because that entity is trapped in a glass sphere under some mansion outside of the city limits of London.
Yeah. So then Alex and Paul are talking, and Alex takes Paul downstairs and shows him Dream. And once again, they beseech him.
Yeah, Alex is like, look,
As long as you don't harm me or Paul, I will let you go.
I literally don't want anything from you other than you not hurting me.
Yeah.
Just if you don't hurt me and Paul, we'll let you go. And Dream is like, should I have believed the boy? Should I have forgiven him for killing Jessamy? Probably. I didn't, so I didn't respond.
Yeah, he basically does that. And this transition, because the show has done great transitions in every scene, is it's young Alex at this point talking to Dream, and we focus in on Dream's face as he's doing this narration in his head. And then we turn the camera, and it's an old Alex now, leaning against the glass, asking him the same thing. He's like, I didn't ask you for immortality, I didn't ask you for anything, I just wanted you to assure us we would be okay.
I literally just wanted to be rid of you, he says.
Yeah, and as he's doing that, Paul comes in with a wheelchair, and he's like, love or dear. He says something like an endearing statement that lets you know that they're definitely involved. And he kind of gestures to the wheelchair, and Alex sits, and Paul turns the wheelchair.
Yeah, Alex says, this will be the last time I come down here.
Yeah.
And Paul turns the wheelchair, and I'm pretty sure purposely...
He gives a knowing nod to Dream when he looks back in a moment.
Scuffs the circle so that the circle's broken, and takes Alex out of the basement, out of the undercroft. And then we cut over to two guards who are sitting there guarding Dream. And it's more modern day now, that it's not just two dudes. They have like security outfits, white shirts,
It's a man and a woman. They're just sitting there. It's bright fluorescent light.
Pistols.
Yeah. And they're just talking, and the guy basically starts to talk about his vacation plans.
Oh, no, like...
There is a great line before this, yes.
The woman's like, what do you think they want with the Dracula?
And the guy's like, why do you call it that? She's like, I reckon it's one of them Draculas. What else would it be?
And he goes, I try not to think about it.
She's like, well, what do you think about it? He's like, Mallorca. 4 days or some shit in Mallorca. He's talking about a vacation he has upcoming. And he leans back and he kind of sighs wistfully and closes his eyes. And then his paper slips and he's in a beach chair on the beach. People all around. And then we see a figure in the distance.
It goes from a beach to like a barren desert scape.
Like we see the sea drain.
And the figure in the distance slowly solidifies into Dream. And the guard's like, you're out. How did you get out? And draws his pistol.
Yeah.
And
as Dream reaches down to pick up some sand.
That he blows in the man's face. And as the man opens fire, we cut back to the waking world.
And the woman is yelling at the man to stop.
I always want to say reality, but like...
Yeah, no, it's the waking world. And the woman's yelling at the man to stop, and the man is shooting the spear, and Dream is just leaning against it, intently staring at him.
I know that this leads to like a direct one-for-one comic book panel recreation.
Technically, almost one-for-one. It's mirrored, but yes, exactly.
And it's excellent. It's
wonderful done.
So the man shoots the glass open, and Dream and all this like pent-up magic energy that he's been...
kind of pulse out of it.
And Dream floats into the air, his back arches.
Well, first he holds out a hand and they're like, stop right there, we'll shoot you. And then he blows sand into their face and they both fall down unconscious.
Yeah, and then he arches and it looks almost like an alien abduction scene.
Or like a blue mystical wormhole.
Yeah, it's so very good. The scene is so well done. And then we cut to Alex, who's an old man, but is now a boy again.
Yeah, we see him, he gets woken up by some sound, and he gets up out of bed, walks in the hallway, and when he looks in the mirror on the side of the hall, he sees that it's a younger him, and he seems confused for a moment, but then immediately doesn't realize it anymore. He's just like, this is normal, and then he sees a cat, and he follows the cat.
And he follows the cat upstairs.
To a dark room that has like an ornate wooden chair.
And then a figure starts to congeal out of the darkness into the chair, and the boy's like, you've escaped. And Dream gets to do cool Dream stuff here. Because he's like, yeah, I've escaped. I've been kept in prison for 100 years.
Yep.
Do you know the damage you've done to not only my world, but yours as well?
And Alex is just like, I never wanted to. I didn't know the damage I was doing, but I also never wanted to. And Dream tells him, then your punishment shall be a paradise. And he traps Alex in his dreams.
An eternal sleep. Yeah, not eternal. Probably like less than
I think he says a century's sleep.
Yeah,
but I mean, the guy's like in his 80s easily.
Yeah, he's not going to live that long.
Yeah, I would say he was like maybe 1926. It is now
80,
assumedly 2022.
It said 80 years later. So
is it? Does it say 80 years later?
When we cut to him in the wheelchair, yes. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think it gives us a time there because we just seamlessly transition there. I don't think we had a time thing.
Maybe
because that would put us in the early 2000s and we have more modern technology.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it gave us an exact 80 years later.
No, because he also says he's been asleep for over a century later, which means it couldn't be 80 years later because that would only put it at 90 years trapped, unless he's being hyperbolic.
I mean, it would be like 94 years because I'm not accounting for the shifting. Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure it's happening in the modern era,
That
like
makes
the modern
sense.
day. But either way,
It could be an issue where, like, the script, the adaptation, what, like, in the comics it says 80 years later, and...
Like I said, I don't think we see a timestamp for this one.
We might not. I could just be wrong. I'm totally fine with being wrong here. Yeah. Like, not a big deal.
Anyways, though, so then we briefly see the Corinthian, and he seems to notice something, and then we're kind of away from him. And we see Dream going back to the dreaming.
Oh, it should be noted that when we do see the Corinthian here, he has a dead body behind him that he's cut the eyes out of.
We see him sitting at a table, and there's a dark, like, track coming from the corner of his eye. He wipes it, and he's like, well, he's free or whatever. And he's like, so I don't have much more time to stick around. And he stands up and walks away, and as he's walking away, we see a young, attractive man who seems to be tied to a chair, completely naked, and both of his eyes are missing.
And this is where Corinthian says something like, I don't have much time to make the world see like I do. Or
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Which we do get here briefly, and you see also in the next episode, if you're looking carefully, because we see the Corinthian before he puts his black glasses back on. Briefly in the mirror, if you look well, you have a large enough screen, you can see that instead of eyes, he has teeth. A set of teeth in both of his eye sockets.
Teeth for eyes.
Yep. But then we cut to Dream returning to the dreaming, and he is met just outside the gates of the dreaming, the main center of the realm, by Lucian,
who is the royal librarian.
Yes, and we saw at the very beginning of the episode seeing him off.
Yeah, she's the one that was helping him like get his gear together, yeah. And she welcomes him back.
And it's like, a lot of people have left.
And he's like, what? Why? And she's like, well, some of them
went to find you.
And others thought you abandoned us.
And he's like, why would they think I abandoned them? And she's like, well, it's not the first time an Endless has abandoned there. And she gets cut off by Dream, who doesn't want to hear it. We see in all of its like amazing art, the Gates of Ivory, as it's called, but I don't think they call it in either of these episodes, open up to reveal the dreaming, which it looks like shit now, man.
It's completely ruined. And that's going to be the end of episode 1.
Well, no.
We get a little bit more. He talks about rebuilding it. But that's pretty much the end of episode 1.
Yeah, we see him in the like throne room try to use his powers to revitalize it and fix it, and he collapses. And Lucian's like, you don't have enough power. And he's like, okay, whatever.
That's the next episode.
I thought he
that all leads into the stuff with Gregory.
Yeah, he vows to rebuild it, and he says he can't let dreams and nightmares prey on folks in the waking world.
Yeah, he vows to rebuild the kingdom and to bring every single dream and nightmare back into the dreaming.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's the end of episode 1, which honestly feel like I'm gonna go ahead and give my take because I know what your take is essentially. Mm-hmm. This feels more like a movie than a show.
I would agree.
This episode feels more like a movie. It's about an hour long. And the cinematography is amazing. The score is amazing. Every character's acting is just top notch. There's not a single line where I stopped, like, where I got taken out of it. Sometimes you have a character deliver a line and you're like, oh, that didn't sound realistic or real, or
like sometimes it feels like the actor doesn't buy what they're saying,
mm-hmm.
or sometimes the line is literally just so ridiculous. You're like, that's dumb.
But that never happens in this hour of television. Now, the next thing I want to say sounds like a criticism, and honestly, you could interpret it that way, but also nothing happens in episode 1. Episode 1 does nothing.
Yeah, no, the only thing I would argue it does is it's just establish that Dream is powerful, and he is trapped, and because of that, people aren't sleeping correctly.
Yeah, between beginning and end of episode 1.
And then he has 3 very strong mystical devices that are stolen and gone.
Between the beginning and end of episode 1, the only actual changes are the dreaming collapses, Dream no longer has his vestments.
Mm-hmm.
And those 2 things could be done in like 5 or 6 minutes at the start of an episode. This isn't a criticism, because even though it's an hour where nothing happens, the groundwork it lays for the rest of the series is immense.
I would argue the most important thing it does, despite having so little dialogue and like all of his dialogue being narration to himself,
yes,
it builds Dream's character.
Lucian.
Yeah. It builds Dream's character so well.
Yes.
Because, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, because we learn it I would assume very early on, like, in the series, because we have to. Dream, at the very start of all the Sandman stuff, Dream is a petty bitch. He thinks he's above it all, but he is a petty bitch. For example, I can have freedom if I just don't hurt these 2, but he killed my raven. While Dream should rightly know the context of the fact that Alex has no fucking idea what the raven actually means. It's just a fucking bird that was here.
Yeah. I mean,
I get he's upset because like the bird has a name and it's
weird,
active and it can speak and
it's
a
a
friend.
weird combination though. It's not just this pettiness. Like you said, it's also the sense that he is above everything else.
Yeah, he's an endless. He's an entity above gods, above mortals.
There was nothing stopping him from being, when the Magus is like, if you could give me power, immortality, there's nothing stopping him from going, oh yeah, just let me out of the circle. And then putting the man into a coma where he believes he has power and immortality.
Yes.
Nothing stopped, that he's keeping his word. He's making all the guy's dreams come true. Like, nothing is stopping him from doing that.
Well, Dream can actively change people's dreams as well, at least in the graphic novels.
Yeah.
Like, or influence them in a way where they do come true for them and they are happy with them. But he doesn't do that here because there are rules and Dream follows them to the T. It's part of his problem. He is a stuffy, above it all, petty bitch in the beginning of the series.
Like, it's ridiculous that he chose to spend 100 years in captivity when at any point he could have just been like, yeah, sure.
I will actively lie to you.
Comas all around.
So I have one complaint.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, I think because I'm very easily getting to my thought. Everything that you said, everything I've mentioned, its cinematography is great. The actors are great. The characters are great. It looks amazing.
The look is... Episode 2 does a whole... we'll get into the look. Yeah.
My only issue is, and it's not mentioned in either of these two episodes, so Roderick Burgess dies right in front of Dream, right in front of Morpheus.
Yeah. In the comics, he dies up in his room from a heart attack.
Yeah. Death, his sibling, Death, appears when people die.
Yeah.
So arguably, Death should appear there. Now, it's entirely possible that Death hid her presence from him.
She doesn't, because I read somewhere that later, because I was reading a article about Death, the character, and the actors. Yeah. And in the article, it talks about how Death later berates Dream for never, like, trying to reach out to her for help while he was trapped.
Exactly.
So like, she had to have been there to fulfill her job.
Yeah.
But she definitely couldn't have been. It's a plot hole. It's a plot hole.
It is my one issue with this, and honestly, it doesn't even really bother me.
No, I mean, I would be okay if the show just goes, oh, Death isn't present for every death, because that's literally too much. I mean, I know she's an endless and technically time doesn't apply to her the same way it applies to... But it's still an insane amount.
Mean, also, when we do see her in the comics, and assuming when we see her in this, because we definitely will see her, she has a schedule that she has to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Which implies, because she's going from point to point, and time does pass when her and Dream are walking around in the city and she's doing her job, that she isn't at every death.
Yeah, exactly. She can't be at every death. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So she just wasn't at his death for some reason. It wasn't specifically important or like specifically needed facilitating in some way. Yeah. Also, I do like that change. Not that he died in the Undercroft with Dream, but that Alex was the direct reason for his death.
Alex had a hand in facilitating his death.
It does more to build Alex as a character.
Yes. Not that we have a lot of time with Alex, but honestly, it's nice to see that Alex gets a tiny bit of catharsis.
He's our primary POV character in episode 1.
Yeah. I'm saying but like we don't get more of him after this. Obviously, he is stuck in dreams.
Yeah. I don't know if you've already got into what you think of the show. I mean, you started, but yeah.
I mean, I basically covered that it's fantastic and I love it.
So that means, would you watch more of this after episode 1?
Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously. It's based off your favorite works. Me too. Gaiman is...
As we talked about in our last In the Cockpit, Gaiman is
objectively the best living author on the planet.
And as much as my mind wants to disagree because it's such a bold statement, I'm going to agree with it. So
it's such a bold statement. Fight me.
But anyways, on to episode 2. Imperfect Hosts.
Oh, I had it here somewhere.
So this episode, Dream returns to the palace. He opens the Ivory Gates. This is actually where he enters in, sees that it's fucked up.
Well, we opened the Ivory Gates at the end of the last episode because, yeah.
But I think this is where he beholds it for the first time. Like, we see the gates open at the end of episode 1, and then we kind of just pick right up there again. And he returns back to the Palace of the Dreaming, which is really fucked up. It's decayed, it's crumbling. And Lucien kind of is like, yeah, I kept a diary of everything that was going on for so long, but one day the book and all the books no longer had words in them. They were all blank. And then the next day, the entire library was gone, and I never found it again.
And this is where Dream attempts to start the rebuilding process of the Dreaming.
Well, I think a kind of important thing between them is Dream almost, like, commends Lucien for staying, because he's like a royal librarian without a library. And she's like, I never doubted you.
Yeah. And so he attempts to rebuild the palace, but he doesn't have the force, the magic, the energy.
The chutzpah.
Yeah, to do it, because he's been trapped in a marble for 100 years.
Yeah, and Lucian's like, you're not strong enough. You need to rest, eat something, maybe rest again, and then try. And he's like, no, I'm just not powerful enough. I don't have my sand or my ruby or my helm. And she's like, where are they? He's like, they were taken?
Yep.
And other than that, I have no idea.
And he says, I'm going to need to consult the three who are one in order to find them.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucian's like, are you insane? They never tell you what you need to know. Just stuff that you shouldn't know.
Stuff you don't want to know.
They speak in riddles. And for those unfamiliar, the three who are one is one of the many names for
the Hecate.
Or the oracles.
Or the three fates.
They are one of Gaiman's favorite pieces of...
I would say so, yeah. They appear in a lot of his work.
They're the only mythological character to make an appearance in the ocean at the end of the lane.
Yeah, they're in the ocean at the end of the lane. They're obviously an American god. They're in Sandman.
But the Hecate are the crone, the mother, and
the
maiden, who are the three aspects of womanhood.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, within like mythological culture. There's the old bitter crone, the caring mother.
The matronly mother, yeah.
And the like...
young, passionate maiden, I guess?
There's a specific word I'm trying to use here.
I don't know.
It means to like have a bright outlook, but because you're unaware of the world.
The naive?
Yes, the naive maiden. Those are the three aspects of the crones. They're also called the crones. That's another term for them.
So from here, Dream says he needs to gather things to summon the crones, because they won't just come for no reason.
Yes.
So we see him walk to the dreaming, the physical embodiment of the dream.
The Lake of Dreams.
Of dreams in the dreaming. It's more of an ocean, really.
Yeah.
And he walks down this long, windy pier.
This ocean at the end of a lane.
Yeah.
We're like...
And Lucian is like, are you sure you'll be okay? And he's like, I am of the dreaming, and the dreaming is of me. You think I have forgotten how to find my way in these waters?
And Lucian's like, no, but in the time that you've been gone, the waters kind of got dark and choppy.
Yeah, he's like, whatever, I'm fine. He reaches down into the water, and then the water reaches up and pulls him in.
Okay, so this entire set... The winding pier, the lake or ocean of dreams.
Wait, actually, sorry, before he even goes here, he says he needs to meet the fates, but he doesn't have the magic to summon them.
Yeah, we skipped over that. But we'll come back. I want to talk about this set piece real fast. Yeah. So this entire set piece, the ocean or lake of dreams, the pier, the night sky, it's all kind of got like this blurriness to the edging of it, and it all feels very much like a dream.
Yes.
And obviously that's the intention, but it does so in a way that like while you're watching it, it still feels like a show you're watching. It has the dream aspects that you would feel like from a show, like any other show.
Yes.
But it doesn't do it in the way shows typically depict dreams with the actual like blurred camera or anything. It's just the actual set. Somehow in practical effects, they've made it feel like the edges of it are blurred.
Yeah.
And it lends itself very well to this whole concept of being inside a realm of dreams.
I would agree. So from there, we move to a sky view of a greener area, and we see a large dragon-esque creature that seems fairly rocky.
We saw it
flying around.
The dream of the doctor.
Yeah, we saw it in the very beginning when we saw our establishing shot of the dreaming.
Yes.
And it flies down, and we hear a man yelling at it, Gregory, and then it lands on the roof, and the man's yelling at it, Gregory, get down from there, you'll slip and fall and hurt yourself.
Which is funny, because if a thing that could fly slipped and fell off a roof, it can fly.
Yeah.
It has wings. It doesn't have to hurt itself.
And then they realize that there's someone coming down like the bridge to their house.
Mm-hmm.
So he runs over, and we see another man, and he kind of just taps on the shoulder. He's like, Kane, we have visitors.
Yes.
And Kane seems confused. He's like, visitors? Who? And it's Lucian and Morpheus.
Yep. And this is Cain and Abel, like the biblical Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
And they are the keepers of the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets.
Respectively.
Yeah. And, which we don't know anything about those as far as the show goes yet.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if they'll be important in season 1.
They honestly shouldn't be.
Okay.
We get more on them in like side stories and stuff, which I would assume we will get at some point. Because fun fact, Sandman dropped as 10 episodes. Literally this past Friday, the 19th, we got an 11th episode, which consisted of 2 fairly popular like side stories or short stories that occur in the Sandman. And I would assume we're gonna get more things like that here and there throughout like the next season.
Yeah, if we get another season.
Yeah.
Which, right now, there's no way it shouldn't get another season.
But also, Netflix makes bad decisions, so who knows?
Like canceling First Kill, which was
popular.
It was very popular. The amount of streaming hours it brought in was ridiculous.
Yes. And I assume its budget was a lot lower than the Sandman's.
Yeah.
So,
Do we want to talk about that real fast?
Nah, we'll talk about it later. So Morpheus approaches them and tells them he has come to take back a gift he has once given them.
Yes, and they're like, well, you can't take it back. You gave it to us.
Well, no, they both agree that it's fine.
At first, yeah.
At first. And then he explains that he needs to take Gregory.
That he needs to essentially eat Gregory.
Yeah, because he has to take something that is pure of the dreaming. That's something that he fully made.
And Gregory started life as a nightmare, which is a creation of Dream.
Mm-hmm. So he can take Gregory back.
And Kane's immediately like, yeah, you could have Abel instead.
Well, no. Kane goes, no, take me. And then he grabs Abel from next to him. He's like, better, take Abel. And Abel's like, yeah, take me instead.
Dream's like, I can't. You were real people. You don't come from the dreaming.
Yeah, you weren't of the dreaming. And Kane says, well, I won't let you. And Dream is just like, I'm not asking you.
You forget your place. I'm not asking you. I'm asking Gregory.
And Gregory acknowledges Dream and allows Dream to assimilate him, basically.
Yeah, break him down into
sand
and absorb him back into the Dream himself, the Sandman.
Yeah, and Kane and Abel are upset, but Morpheus and Lucian kind of walk off after that. And then Abel wishes Morpheus good luck, and Kane calls him a simpering suck-up, grabs a pitchfork, and stabs him through the chest.
Because, and we'll get more of it as it goes on, but
in fact, Abel will explain it to us.
Yeah.
That's right. The man who was just stabbed through the chest and is dead will explain it to us.
Kane kills Abel every day. Kane buries Abel. Abel crawls out of the grave. They're in a perpetual state of...
They repeat their story, the story of Cain and Abel, every day.
Every day. Over and over for all of eternity.
Mm-hmm. So then we see Morpheus at the pier and basically activates the water of the dreaming by pouring the sand that was Gregory into it.
Mm-hmm.
And as he reaches down, a hand reaches up and pulls him in. And we get more narration from him. And he's like, it's basically, Lucien was right. The currents are a lot faster. The dreams are a lot more wild. They don't seem to recognize their master.
So I'll have to show them who their master is.
Yes.
And then he details where he gets the things he needs.
Mm-hmm. And what they are. And what
first, he needs the crossroads, because that is where you meet the crones.
Yes. So he gets one from
a farmer's dream.
Yes, a Chinese farmer's dream. And we see a hand reach down from the sky and literally pull a dirt crossroad up from the ground.
Mm-hmm. And then he takes... I think you're combining the gallows, because I'm pretty sure that the crossroads was like an Argentinian farmer, a South American farmer.
Maybe.
The gallows are from a Japanese or a Chinese teenager.
It's a Japanese cinephile.
Yeah, who...
A Japanese... British cinephile.
Yeah, and he takes the gallows from that man's dreams, because...
I think he refers to the person dreaming as a woman.
Maybe.
In that circumstance. He takes the gallows from there because they like British horror films. British period horror films.
Very specific.
Yes. And he's explaining why he needs each of these things. The crossroads are where you meet the fates. The hangman represents like wisdom and such. And so we see him pull up the crossroads. We see Dream standing at the gallows and getting hanged. And as he falls into like the next dream he needs.
Which is a snake, because
he looks like he's in like a dungeon or like maybe a rookery almost. It's hard to tell.
Got very like barn fillings here. It
had like stone walls and like metal behind it too. Like a metal grate.
But the point is, there's a snake, and he needs the snake because the snake represents the cycle of life and death.
And transformation.
And so the snake lunges at him, and he traps it in his cloak.
Mm-hmm. And then he picks up an egg. He mentions nothing about the egg, but he picks the egg up.
Yep. And then once he has all the materials, it's time to summon the crones, the Hecate. And this is, in the first 2 episodes, the most well done, most beautifully orchestrated scene that this show does. In these first 2 episodes, this is just peak cinema. So good.
We also get what I know is another exact comic book panel shot, which is when we first see the Fates as he summons them, we see them as a 3-headed figure, and they split. They're like a 3-headed ghostly figure almost, which is an artistic representation of the Fates throughout like mythology. Like if you look at them, especially in like Greek mythology, you will sometimes see a 3-faced woman.
Yeah. So they speak in a manner where each one delivers a line separately. So when they show us the maiden, on her left is the crone, on her right is the mother. When they show us the mother, on the left is the maiden, on the right is the crone. And when they show us the crone, on the left is the mother, the right is the maiden.
Yes.
The implication is that they rotate through, but like they don't move to rotate through. They are all simultaneously the same individual, but different individuals.
So they welcome Dream, and then
the crone is upset because he didn't help them deal with Circe
when she was causing problems. And then the
maiden says, but he's brought such nice gifts.
Well, no, then the mother cuts in, because it always goes in an order. Yeah. The mother cuts in and says, the past is the past, sister self.
And then,
so she recognizes separate entities of herself, but that they are also part of herself, hence sister self.
And the maiden follows up with, and he's brought such nice gifts.
To which She holds out her hand, and Dream holds out his, and the snake moves along his, down her arm.
And the mother swallows the snake.
Just after telling him that you will get 3 questions. You'll have 3 questions, and you will receive 3 answers.
No more, no less. And so he asks his first question.
Where's his hand?
I had a pouch of sand. Where is it? And they don't actually answer that question.
No.
They tell him what happened to it, not where it is.
Sold in London, most recently to a Johanna Constantine.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, but where is it? And they go, you know the rules.
Yes.
1 question, 1 answer.
And then we go to the mother, and he asks what happened to his helm. Well, he asks where is his helm, like, nah.
He specifically asks what happens.
Oh, yeah.
What happened
and
to
they tell him that his helm was traded to a demon for an object of protection.
An amulet of protection.
Yeah, the amulet of protection actually says it is a specific item.
And then it goes to the crone. Well,
and now the helm isn't a hell.
Yeah.
They do make sure to mention that part.
He asks another question about his helm here, too.
Who has it?
Which demon has it?
Which demon has it? And they're like, blah, blah, blah.
1 question, 1 rule. And we go to the crone, and he goes, lastly, I had a ruby. Who has it now?
And they tell him that it was passed from a mother to a son.
And he's like, okay, but who?
Yeah.
You know the rules. 1 question, 1 answer. They kind of yell at him.
And then they disappear.
And they disappear. So he goes back. Well, actually, Lucian shows up here at the crossroads.
Yes. And she's like, you didn't give them the egg. He's like, it wasn't meant for them.
Then we cut back to Cain and Abel is digging himself out of his grave, where he finds an egg at the foot of his grave. I missing something?
Yeah.
My bad.
I mean, technically, we both missed something, honestly, before all of this.
Oh, is it the Corinthian?
Yeah, it's the Corinthian.
Yeah,
I think we can mention that now, because technically this happens before he even goes to Cain and Abel.
Yeah, that's fine. We could do the Cain and Abel stuff and then jump over to the Corinthian. So he goes, the egg was never meant for them. And we jump to Cain and Abel. Abel's crawling out of his grave, where at the foot of his grave is the egg from earlier.
Yeah.
And Abel picks it up and takes it into Cain's house and goes, oh, thank you, Cain.
Thank you for giving me a present. And Cain says, like,
why would I give you a present?
To apologize for murdering me.
When have I ever apologized for murdering you?
Well, if you didn't give it to me, then who did?
And then the egg starts hatching.
Well, Cain's like, clearly it was Lord Dream.
Well, not yet, because Cain's like, I don't know, I don't know what's going on. But it hatches out a baby gargoyle, and Cain's like, oh, okay. It was obviously Dream. He's trying to buy us off.
Yeah.
If he thinks leaving this on our doorstep will get us to forgive him for...
Yeah. And then it coos, and Cain's like, Abel is like, it's adorable. And Cain's just like, it is kind of cute.
And then Abel's like, I think I'll call him...
Irving.
And Cain gets mad and goes over to the shelf. He goes,
well, first Cain goes, you can't call it Irving. Everyone knows gargoyles always start with a G.
And
names start with a G.
He grabs the book off a shelf, and he's like, he names an actual...
Ganymede.
He names an actual gargoyle from DC's comics.
Yes.
I don't remember the name of. Then he goes, Ganymede, Gorgon...
Garmadon.
And he's like, okay, I'll call it Gerving then. And Cain
just grabs a hot poker from the fireplace and starts approaching him.
And Abel starts around and he's like,
Goldie.
Goldie's a good name. Goldie, we could call it Goldie. And then
we just see Cain shove the poker forwards. We don't see him stab it into Abel, but obviously.
Yeah, Abel is dead. So then Abel wakes up the next morning, digs himself out of his grave.
Goldie's there.
And he calls him Irving, and he's like, Goldie, I'm sorry. But
I'll call you Goldie for Cain's sake, but in my heart, I'll think of you as Irving.
And, like, the gargoyle obviously prefers being called Irving.
Yeah.
And so he's like, we'll go ahead and see how Cain's doing now. Don't worry, he won't kill me before noon. He's not much of a morning person. He hardly never kills me before noon.
He also tells Goldie a story about 2 brothers who love each other, and the older one never kills the younger one, and they live in the same house, and they're happy.
And it's not a story. It's just Abel, like, talking about what he wishes life was like. So, while all this is going on, though, while Dream is collecting his items for the crones, while he's meeting with the crones, while Cain and Abel are dying and
we see
murdering.
Ethel nowadays. And she is on the phone with a lot of people calling back and forth because she is fencing art and items.
Yeah, art and artifacts and collectibles and jewelry.
She's selling a Caravaggio to someone. She's selling the Honjo Masamune to someone.
Yeah.
And then she hears like some weird noises.
And she checks her video feed that shows her the front of her building, but nobody's there.
She checks her hallway.
And then suddenly there's a man behind her.
And it is the Corinthian. And he talks about how hard it was to find her.
How she's got most of the world convinced that she doesn't exist anymore.
Well, she asks him how he got in. And he's like, getting in was easy. The hardest part was finding you. You've done your best to try to convince the world that Ethel Cripps doesn't exist.
And she goes, well, I haven't convinced people well enough. And he goes, well, to be fair, I'm hardly people.
Yeah. And she goes, so you're one of his then?
Yeah. And so he tells her the Sandman has escaped Dream is out and about, and he'll be looking for his relics, and he'll be coming for you.
And she's like, why would he be coming for me? He's like, you stole his things.
And so the Corinthians like, if we had his things, the mask, the ruby, the sand, we could kill him, get rid of him forever.
And she's like, well, I don't have any of it anymore.
And so they get into this argument where it's not like a direct argument. It's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, the Corinthians insisting that she knows more than she's letting on.
And she's like, well, I sold the sand and the mask in order
for my new life here.
To get here to America and like fund my life. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, what about the ruby? And she goes, the ruby makes dreams come true, but it also makes nightmares come true. Mm-hmm. My son stole it from me, and then it stole him from me.
Yes. So
the Corinthian goes, well, then where is it now?
She tells him that John has it, basically. And he's getting annoyed at her because he still doesn't believe her. And he pulls out his knife and is like, seems to be to kill her. And she mentions that she doesn't need the ruby.
Well, yeah, he's 100% going to kill her. But he's like, oh, it doesn't matter what you say. Once I have your eyes.
Yeah, I'll see everything I need to know.
Yeah.
And Ethel tells him that she doesn't need Dream's ruby or any of his tools to protect her anymore. And she pulls out the amulet of protection.
And he is dissipated into sand.
Yeah. So the amulet opens and it's an eye. If you didn't notice,
I did not notice.
It opens like an eye and then he dissipates.
I did not notice.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the Eye of Agamemnon?
No.
It's the right color?
No.
It can't control time. Sad days.
So then, from there, we cut to Cain and Abel with the egg and everything. And after Cain kills Abel again...
We're a little bit out of order.
And then after Cain kills Abel again, I'm mentioning this part because otherwise the fact that Ethel changes scenes here...
That's fair.
She is seen walking into a building and she's greeted as Miss D.
Yep.
And she's escorted into a room where her son Johnny is.
Yep. It's a psychiatric hospital of some type. Very high levels of security.
She asks John how his therapy's going and she's trying to talk to him. She asks how he is and he's like, a little bored and highly medicated.
And he keeps
the best one can do in a prison.
He keeps saying he's in prison and she's like, no, you're not. This is a hospital.
And he's not really talking to her until she says they need to talk about the ruby.
Yeah.
And then he's all ears. He's paying attention.
But we don't really get that into the conversation yet. In fact, I don't think we get the rest of that conversation in this episode.
Yeah. And then after that, this is when Abel wakes up. He wakes up this time. This is where he wakes up and tells Goldie about his dream with all that. And then we see Dream and Lucien back at the pier. And Dream is telling Lucien that he needs to go back to London.
Yeah. And she's like, didn't you just spend 100 years there? And he
seems to like kind of glare at her and he's like, my sand is there.
Yeah. A magic user named Joanna Constantine has it.
Which if she's anything like her ancestors, she will serve him well.
Yeah. And she's like, well, okay, but you should take a raven.
And Dream insists. He will not take any more ravens, not after Jessamy.
He also tells her here that once he has his sand back, he's going to go to hell to get his helmet back. And she's like, that's a terrible idea.
Yes.
But yeah, she's like, you should take a raven at least. Do me a favor, take a raven.
You should take a raven because it can go from the waking to the dream and let me know. And he's like, I do not need a minder. And then he parts the sea or the ocean or the lake, whatever it is, the body of water that is the dreams, and descends stairs into a dark abyss.
Yeah. And that's the end of the episode?
No.
What am I missing?
We see the Corinthian reform on the shores of the dreaming.
Yep, that's
just
right.
outside the gates of Ivory.
And Lucien's like, oh, great, you're back just in time. The Lord just left again, but he'll be back.
She doesn't tell him that. Corinthian mentions it's weird that Dream's not there and such. And she's like, well, he just left again.
Yeah.
And then Corinthian's like, I'm not going to be ruled by him.
Lucien's like, you should stay. I mean, you're already here. You should stay. And Corinthian's like, you don't understand the world that waits us out there.
Yeah. And he basically tries to convince Lucien to leave as well. Like, doesn't really try, but he's just like, look, we don't have to be ruled by Dream. And then he dips. And that's the end of the episode.
Oh, yes. The Corinthian leaving the dreaming again. And that's the end. So what are your thoughts on the Sandman as a whole? The first 2 episodes.
It's fantastic. The cast is brilliant. The cinematography is brilliant. The sound is amazing. The CG is wonderfully done. The art, the attention to detail, it's all amazingly done.
How do you feel about the gender swapping of characters and the race swapping of characters?
I give no fucks.
Because I know that was a big issue when the show was in development.
People threw such a big giant fucking fit. I don't care. Okay, Lucien is a black woman now instead of a older white man with weird hair. Like, the only argument there of why that's not as good is, like, Lucien is another character from, like, a DC comic who is, like, there in the background. I think he told, like, stories and shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. Literally, his existence in the Sandman comics is, I had the ability to use that character and tie more DC stuff together. Cool, I will.
Yep.
The character is very much still extremely similar.
I'm obviously on a similar vibe to you with that. Like, Gaiman was highly involved with the production of the series.
Yes.
And he's not going to let them make changes that are going to negatively affect the story. And in most cases, the gender and race of a character aren't going to highly affect
No.
the story.
Like, honestly, the biggest change here is the fact that we see so much of the Corinthian.
Yeah, which I think that might have happened after they cast him and were like...
After they got Boyd Holbrook and they're just like, oh, he's fucking great. He is an amazing Corinthian.
And they're like, can we rewrite to put more of him in here?
And it doesn't do anything negative for it at all.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I forgot to mention, John Dee is played by David Thewlis, also known as Professor Lupin.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Or Ares from
Wonder Woman 1?
Mm-hmm.
The good Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah, but the worst part of that movie. Not his acting, he's a great actor, but like...
The Ares
bit.
The
end of Wonder Woman was bad.
I too agree. The show is fantastic. Would obviously watch more. We'll finish this season off sometime this weekend, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Before Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
So by the time this episode goes live, I will be deep into Sandman. I first am going to finish Animal Kingdom, but I have 8 more episodes of that, not counting the 2 episodes that haven't come out yet.
Yeah.
So...
Like, no, this is going to be fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah, I'm excited for a season 2. American Gods is over.
Which is sad.
But if this is what Neil Gaiman's going to do with the back part of his like life and career, is him adapting his stuff, making the best adaptions of novels to television shows ever done, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Like, Good Omens is still getting that 2nd season, which is going to be dope.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Neil Gaiman is actually a curse for the television world because Good Omens, amazing. American God, amazing.
I argue that the main reason American Gods ended when it does is we did hit a slower arc in the story and it was on Stars and no one wanted to actually pay to watch Stars.
Sandman, amazing adaptation. And the thing is, these adaptations are not just amazing stories for television, but they're amazing adaptations of the source material. And what this says is Hollywood could do it if they wanted to. They could make a good Aragon. They could make a good Percy Jackson.
Yes. But here I think is the point where we can mention something we briefly touched on but didn't actually clarify. Yes, they definitely could. The budget roughly for each Sandman episode, though...
The budget for the season is like over $500 million. Yeah,
because I think the budget for like each episode is roughly $15 million from what I've seen.
Oh yeah, 15. So the budget for the entire season is about $200 million.
Yeah.
Which is an insanity. But also...
It pays off so fucking much.
Like I said, Gaiman is a curse for the television industry because he is quite blatantly saying other shows could be this good. Yeah. They could do this work. They just don't want to. They want to cut corners. They want to change the story in significant ways.
And like, yeah, the story in his clearly changes, like we mentioned. Like,
I think the biggest change is Alex killing his father.
Alex kills his father. John Dee isn't in Arkham Asylum. Oh no.
But like, these changes aren't big enough to actually alter the plot in a significant manner.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And in the case of Alex killing the Magus, I think it's actually a positive change because it makes Alex have agency. Alex does not have agency in the comics.
No, because Alex is literally just a stooge for his father. And then he is a man who is stuck with an entity that he doesn't know how to deal with, and it literally haunts him for the rest of his life.
Yes. But here he has agency, he has wants and desires, and he's trying to, like, Alex killing his father and becoming this character who is actively trying to get rid of Dream instead of a character who like lives with the fact that he has Dream undermines the pettiness of the character that is Dream. Because in the comics, Alex is not so much after like continually being like, hey, I want you to leave. Just don't kill us. That Alex in the comics gives up much quicker than he does in the show. He just consigns himself to living with this entity.
Yes. In the comics, it seems to be like once his father's dead,
he just kind of locks the basement up and says, fuck it.
Well, he does visit Dream on occasion, but it seems to be almost always at Paul's behest.
Yes. So giving Alex more agency is just chef's kiss. And if that's the type of changes you're making, that's just good writing. So yeah, I think we both love this show.
Yep, that's fantastic.
That's the episode lengths
they're not entirely consistent. The first episode's like 55 minutes. The next episode's like
36 or
37-ish.
Yeah.
But from there, it tends to balance out around the 45 mark on average.
It's between 35 and like 50 minutes.
I would say it's between like 40 and 55.
Yeah, so...
The second episode is the shortest of the episodes.
Yeah.
It very much tells the story it needs to in the episode and doesn't stretch the time for it, which is still one of my favorite parts about like streaming shows.
Yeah.
That they can just tell the story they need to tell in the time they have.
The worst part about streaming was when they were like, oh, shows are an hour long? Shows are an hour long.
Yeah. Having the ability to be like, no, this is the story we're telling. That's all we need for it. That's fine.
Yeah, once streaming services realized, oh, we don't have to abide by cable standards.
Yeah. Which I think a large portion of that is actually the fact that a lot of streaming shows just drop everything in bulk now.
Yeah.
The MCU shows still tend to be roughly all the same length. Like, they might vary in a few minutes here or there, but nothing major.
I think Moon Knight saw quite a variety. And
Moon Knight saw more of a variety, I would say, but I think overall the MCU has been like fairly like it needs to be like
She-Hulk.
50 minutes to like 57
also,
minutes.
She-Hulk's out now.
Yes,
so we need
just came out.
Yeah, we need to
There's only one episode out right now. So, or unless it had a 2-episode premiere, but I don't think it did. So, maybe that's what we'll do for the second. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe we don't want to do 2 comic materials back to back.
We do so much comic stuff. I was looking through our feed, and we do so much comic stuff.
It's because of the extreme saturation of superhero media.
Yeah, that's fair. And also because we're nerds.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for flying with us. If you want to get in contact with us and tell us your opinions on Neil Gaiman, which if your opinion are anything other than best author alive, you're wrong, you can do that by reaching out to us at Copilots Review on Twitter, or
you can email us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
Or you can find both of those links, as well as links to our Discord, our YouTube, our Patreon, our hidden email, all at copilotsreview.simplecast.com. Oh, yeah. Sorry. No hidden email. You can't get that without finding the episode where we talk about that.
So, I mean, technically, you can find it from our website. You'd have to find the episode.
It is on that. It is on the website. Yeah. It is at copilotsreview.simplecast.com.
And then it's in one of the episodes. I don't know which episode, but one of them.
I honestly don't remember.
Anyways, though, thank you for flying with us, and please fly again soon.